In a word, will you be coaching next year?
Yes.
Well, never has there been greater evidence of the footy cliche that 7 days is a long time in footy, and we welcome you back, Tim, along with your president in Andrew Plympton, back to the show. 2 weeks in a row. It's a
record.
It is a record, probably one you'd rather not have.
I'd rather not have that than there. Yeah.
Tim, a monumental day in your career, probably the lowest that you've ever been in your football career, which has had so many highlights. How are you going to view footy in 10 years' time?
Oh, I would assume that I'll be still loving football. I don't dislike football even today. I mean, it's not a matter of the game. I mean, it's just a matter of my own situation today and the club situation, which obviously I feel deeply about.
Tim, commiserations. There's a few in the club, mate. Welcome. Do you still think you can coach? I mean, this is probably a strange question, but do you still think inside of Tim Watson there is a position that says I can actually do it?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Is there a burn at the moment?
Look, as I said today, look, I feel a deep responsibility of the situation at St Kilda, and you should, but I guess that's probably been an overpowering emotion of recent times.
Tim, you said you still believe you can coach. Do you believe the opportunity to do it again will ever present itself?
Yeah, that's a difficult question to answer. I don't know. I really don't know whether or not that probably... I mean, you know, Malcolm sort of started and stopped and started and stopped and started and stopped again.
Yeah.
Stopped at the moment, you'll probably start again. I mean, I don't know.
You said on your own admission you've been to dark and murky places. When was the darkest and murkiest and prompted you to make this decision?
I think probably the worst time was probably after the Richmond loss early
more
in the
recently,
season.
I mean, that you're talking over the whole season now. I'm talking about something's happened in the last few days, hasn't it, to bring it to a head? Because your commitment was to finish the season.
Well, I'm still finishing the season, though.
Yeah, but to finish the season as the coach and without sort of any announcement that about your future.
Well, I suppose, I suppose you don't make a momentous decision like this overnight. I mean, it's been probably something that's been there for a while, and it's a continuous evaluation you make of your own performances and the influences that you have on other people.
Tim, there's lots of theories abounding as to why you made the decision, and some have suggested that perhaps an article that appeared quoting your president, Andrew Plympton, has influenced you. Mike, you suggested that there was a distancing, you thought, from Andrew and Tim in that article.
Well, I think certainly 3 weeks ago, Andrew was unequivocal that Tim would coach the football club next year. And I'm just interested, Andrew, where does this leave the president now that Tim has made his decision and you've been linked so closely?
Can I just pick up on that point, though? I mean, the question about that article. I actually haven't read that article.
Where does Tim's resignation leave you, Andrew?
Well, that leaves me and the club looking for a new coach to try and give you a smart aleck response, which I know you don't want. It leaves me in a position that for the last year I've been considering my position at St Kilda, and with Tim resigning at the end of the year. As I said today, it's not a matter for me to come out and make an announcement today, other than to say that in the next few weeks I will be making a decision on my future. But as I said on Jared's show tonight, I mean, my journey is nearing the finish, not the start.
How did it happen? How did Tim talk to you for this to eventuate today?
Well, it's certainly been a process from the early part of the season. I think Tim and I reflected on, the Richmond loss, and during the relationship over the last 10 or 12 weeks. In the sense that Tim and I do have a strong relationship. There were obvious issues that were of concern to him, and we talked those through. I was in London last week, and Tim and I had a few discussions on the phone, and I returned back yesterday morning, and Tim had made that decision.
Andrew, we asked Tim last week about whether it was at the meeting that 4 or 5 you've had early in the season, and the understanding that Tim had said to you, if you think you can go in a better direction without me, I'm prepared to step aside. He declined to answer that. Are you prepared to tell us what transpired then?
Other than to say this, that we were searching for a lot of issues, and Tim, myself, a couple of others had a discussion, and a whole range of issues were brought up, and I'll leave it at that.
Did he offer to resign?
A whole lot of issues were brought up, and his offer of resignation was not an issue that Tim put directly on the table.
So, Tim, some of those answers, the players, going into coaching, your expectation level on the player and group that you had at St Kilda, has it turned out to be above or below where you thought it was when you first saw them from outside?
In some instances, it was above. I mean, some of the players surprise you, and some of the players probably don't live up to the expectation that you set.
Can I just go on from that then? If that's the case, if you were going to take St Kilda on again, or another football club on a game, would you actually do a lot more homework on the team that you're about to coach than, say, you did or didn't do?
Yeah, look, I think probably, and that's one of the reasons why I think probably, I've made this decision now, because I think that gives everybody a lot more time to go through the processes that need to be adhered to.
So you would actually do that again? You'd perhaps go down to training and watch those blokes train a bit more, get to know the club before you actually say yes?
Well, the circumstances when I took over didn't allow for that.
Rodney Eade had a few interesting things to say after the match on Saturday night.
I think that they obviously didn't come to win the game. They obviously come to not lose by too much, and that was just they just had 18 blokes in our forward line. That's fine. I mean, teams do that.
You offended by that?
No, I'm not offended. Actually, I was bemused at the end of the game when one of the journalists actually told me of those comments, because I actually thought that it was probably Rocket that perfected the art of flooding the opposition.
And I wish they'd get rid of it too.
Yeah, well, we talked about this last week, didn't we?
Yeah.
I think as I said last week, I think in time there will have to be a rule that's implemented.
Andrew, can I just take you forward now? I mean, this is just the reality now. Tim is the departing coach. You've got to look to the future. Who will decide who coaches St Kilda, and when do you start the search?
Well, firstly, a committee will be appointed to...
Will you be on that?
I'm not sure. I may well not be on that committee. When do we start searching? I think that we probably start initiating the key points of identifying what a coach quality should be in the next 3 or 4 weeks. It's a difficult situation. We would not want to speak to any AFL coach, and I'm sure any AFL coach would not want to speak to us that was about to enter the finals. I think we would owe them the right to see their club through to the final series.
Have you spoken to the chap on your left, my colleague Malcolm, and if you haven't, do you intend to?
That would be a matter for between the club and Malcolm at some future time.
So nothing has happened?
Nothing has happened.
Andrew, can I just... Looking at the St Kilda's history, recent history, we've all been inexperienced coaches, and that's not good or bad. I mean, someone's got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Would the approach be slightly different this time, that you would go for someone with experience?
It may well be.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you also have to look back at the time when those coaches were appointed and where the club was at that time.
Can we just put to bed, Malcolm, before we go much further, your position? If you're approached directly, indirectly by anyone at St Kilda, is it something you would entertain?
Jared, I only stopped 8 months ago. I mean, I'm not in the position to... Why would I want to go back? I mean,
only you can answer that question.
Yeah, no, I'm quite happy what I'm doing, thank you.
Is there a time in your immediate future you can see, after your 2-year remission, sojourn up north on the golf courses and in the sun, that you'll perhaps do it?
I said I'd never say never again, so I'll say never again.
Tim, just one. I suspect watching you today at the media conference, there was this huge albatross just lifted off your neck. Now that it's been done and you've made the statement, how does it sit with you?
Well, look, I don't know how you detected that a huge albatross had been lifted off my shoulders, because I certainly don't feel any relief about it. As I said today, I still feel disappointed. I don't feel relieved in any way. I'm sure that in time, I'll feel differently about it, perhaps, but it's not something that sits comfortably with me.
Well, Tim, let's just see if you've still got your hand in and you're going to be able to get behind a camera at some stage as we have a look at the winners from round 16. Take us through them for us, Tim.
It's an audition, Tim.
The Western Bulldogs